My name is Ania Hajdrowska. I'm from Culture Code, and at Culture Code we do believe that we help actually companies to discover the uniqueness of their cultures and how that can support business growth. However, in the context of the last 3 years, where unprecedented changes are happening and we have so much uncertainty that is becoming our status quo, we see also leaders realizing the benefits of the positive impact that culture can have on business. And we are also very much aware of that a lot of HR professionals like you, they are really having hard times at the moment, and they are struggling with all the side effects of the current situation. The side effects such as low employee engagement, layoffs, cost cutting, hiring freezing, but also on the other side, we see also unfortunately that there are still talent wars that are slowing down the business growth. And at Culture Code, we really believe that missing ingredients that can help with solving those challenges is aligned culture. And today, together with our brilliant speakers, we would like to inspire you to look at the culture a bit differently and look at it as an asset that will really help you to solve and deal with these today challenges. So our agenda for today is we are going to start first with a keynote that will be followed by the short Q&A, and please do post questions in the chat. If we won't be able to answer all these questions, we will be very happy to continue the discussion after the webinar. And after the keynote, we are going to have an amazing discussion with HR leaders. So with that, slowly, I'm going to invite on stage our first speaker, who is going to talk to us about culture as a key business strategy in crisis prevention. Let's give Tamara a minute to arrive on stage. Fantastic. Welcome, Tamara. We are very happy to have you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And I would like to give a small introduction. So Tamara is a very inspiring researcher and a teacher who has a corporate background and a PhD in organizational behavior. Tamara teaches actually about organizational culture at large universities, but also at the companies. And she's also a founder of her own school, providing executive education programs for future culture professionals. Welcome, Tamara.
Thank you, Anya. Thank you very much.
Yes, I'm going to stop sharing, and I will leave the stage for you, and you can add the presentation.
Yes. Let's see how that works.
Fantastic.
Can you see my slides?
We can see your slides, and I wish you a great presentation. And I'll be back with you for the Q&A after the session.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think I have to be on this window. So formal hello and welcome everyone from me as well. I'm happy that you all joined us for this discussion. As Anya introduced me, my name is Tamara. I'm an educator in organizational culture, an advisor. I work with companies and large universities, and also my own school through which we provide online executive education for the people who would like to gain a deeper, longer program in organizational culture and would like to become culture professionals. I'm also active as a psychologist, working with people on existential crisis, career crisis, personal identity crisis. And I really like to use this cross-science contamination because I think if we study in psychology how people overcome a crisis personally as an individual, companies can also learn a lot from that. So I find it very fascinating, this cross-scientific exchange. This session today is going to be on organizational culture, and on a less known aspect of it, or a more counterintuitive angle. I think you would agree with me, and most people would agree, that culture really matters. So there is usually not a lot of discussion on this term, and rightfully so, because we have over 100 scientific studies that are saying that there is a strong relationship between organizational culture and performance. There is a direct relationship, and in this relationship, culture comes first. Meaning that a functional culture, a strong culture, a positive culture will positively impact organizational outcomes. And by organizational outcomes, I mean higher performance, higher financial performance, higher employee engagement, loyalty of employees, and a better execution of strategic plans. And we all agree here, I think, and we have scientific evidence, so that's good. But what is less understood is that this is what happens on a good day, when the conditions in which companies operate are stable, they are predictable, they are clear. However, what is interesting and perhaps less understood is that on a bad day, when things are turbulent, when conditions under which companies operate are shaky, disruptive, uncertain, especially in these terms, culture seems to matter even more. Culture seems to be even more important. And what I'm trying to say is that culture definitely matters on a good day, but the less peaceful these times become, the less good these times become, the more culture seems to matter. And it's very important to have, it's a very timely discussion. I'm glad that Culture Code is doing this webinar today, because the times we are going through right now as people and as companies are quite shaky. So this is a very timely discussion. And the fact that culture matters and is even perhaps more important on during critical times. This is not just my amazing innovative idea. Other people came up with that. In fact, well-known futurists, those people who studied the trends that shape our future, including the future of work, they said that the more things will change, the more culture will matter. And things change quite a lot right now, right? Because if you look at it, today we stand at the peak of not just one, but at least three converging and potentially catastrophic long-term phenomena. So we see that there is a looming economic recession. You see this nerve-wracking news about the financial systems, the banks going down in the US, and all these signs are giving us stress and uncertainty. As companies, we have to face higher energy prices, disrupted supply channels. We are facing another threat coming from the climate change and the things that companies need to transform or do differently to address that. We are just recovering from a health crisis, and I hope another one is not coming, although there are also all kinds of news. So you see, on their own, each of them is quite stressful. Each of these phenomena is quite stressful. But now what we are going through now is that they are converging, and together these trends magnify all the challenges. So in terms of the business environment, we really live in an unprecedented era of uncertainty, when these constant waves of crisis are threatening, you could say, every business, every company in any industry, in any place on earth. So during the pandemic, there was a lot of the discussion that we are entering the times of new normal and we need to learn to live in a new normal. Well, now it seems like we are entering the times of the never normal, and this is what we need to live in. So in face of all these threats, it is what it is. We need to somehow live with it. Millions of managers, leaders, HR managers are everybody's desperate to do the right thing, right? To find a new way to survive in this crisis. But leading a company through times like these ones, like times of such instability like we're living right now, this is really a job for the superheroes. And I wanted to acknowledge that this is really a unique time to be a leader, because there are no templates to follow. There are no proven paths or strategies that you know for sure will work. So nothing that we know for sure will be a sure way out of the difficult times and of the crisis. And in psychology, when a person faces a crisis, we always consider this a crossroad. We always say that this is a choice point where you can choose to keep doing what you were doing and things will most likely only get worse, or you can define a new personal strategy. You can reinvent yourself. You can do something differently. And this is also what leaders of companies are required to do right now. Exactly that. They need to define a new direction, to develop a new strategy, to start some kind of transformation project. And they need to do it quickly because, as you know, in crisis, speed is really essential. And sadly, but certainly, I have to say that most of these transformation projects will fail, because that's what they do. The statistics is really bad. So we see that most big transformation projects fail. And in most cases, they miss the mark, not because the new strategy is wrong, not because the new direction is flawed, but because the team cannot carry it out. It cannot properly execute on the strategy. And this is really where culture comes in all this discussion about how does culture matter in a crisis. Culture is really making sure that your team is able to execute on a strategy, on a new strategy. So let's consider for a moment, when times are like they are right now, in these surreal times, right? What do most CEOs and managers, leaders try to do? Well, most of them focus on urgent corporate priorities, on firefighting. And this is understandable and it's good. But the problem is that most often they do it on the expense of softer, more intangible elements, more intangible considerations. And we have quite dependable scientific evidence saying that what makes an organization effective in times of uncertainty or crisis, this has nothing to do with what the conventional business education has taught us. So when discussing what makes a company ineffective in times of crisis, Michael Beer, he's a professor of Harvard Business School, he proposed that it's down to some elements. And the first one is that's about having unclear values and conflicting priorities. Then it's about having ineffective leadership, both on their own, so individually, but also as a leadership team. And it's about lack of cohesiveness when teams are working in silos. So the unclear values and conflicting priorities, this means that the organization lacks a clearly defined, articulated direction and values that are guiding the behavior of team members. And this will be shown in all kinds of conflicts over resources, over priorities. It will translate into a poor execution of the strategy, of course, because you know very well when everything is labeled as a priority, nothing gets done. And the only result that is achieved is that people are super unhappy professionally. They feel overworked, overloaded, and they are simply not operating at their best potential. The second element is about ineffective leaders. And this implies that the leadership team is not speaking a common voice about the strategy, about the values, and this results in low trust in them, but also low trust in the direction that they are proposing in the strategy. And sometimes people don't even understand what the strategy or the new direction even is, because the leadership team is not speaking a common voice. And a very clear sign of this ineffectiveness is if you observe the senior leadership meetings and you see that they spend time on discussing short-term operational details rather than discussing the common vision and the strategy, this is a clear sign for you of this ineffectiveness criteria. And the third one is the poor coordination across teams. So implying that teams work in silos, there is very little organizational solidarity. And if you observe, it looks like each team is defending their own kingdom, and as if they are competing among themselves rather than trying to execute on a direction as a company. And this results again in a lack of honest and open communication, and it makes it painfully hard to execute on any cross initiatives, cross geographic, cross business, cross anything basically, because nobody really is interested in pursuing one common goal. So you see, this professor, this research I'm referring to is not talking about lack of investments or inability to attract investments or a badly implemented reorg or slow downsizing or cost cutting, because it's not about that. It's not that makes a company ineffective in times of crisis. It's really about unclear values, a lack of solidarity, a lack of common vision, and perhaps all of them soft elements, and all of them are elements of organizational culture. So he isn't saying that directly, that culture matters, but all these elements that he's describing, these are culture elements. So we know that companies that we consider great, those that we would call great companies, they all have a well-defined and an inspiring organizational culture. And we know that usually these companies don't start working on culture in the middle of the crisis. Usually they have culture defined as they are entering the crisis. And it's the same with people. A person who has a strong personal identity and understanding of who I am, what are my values, what are my goals, what's my life vision, what are my ambitions and aspirations, this person is much better equipped to go through a personal crisis than a person who doesn't have. And as culture is the group identity of the company, of course, having a clear, solid culture and understanding of who we are as a team will help the company go through the crisis. And this really works by culture being the social glue, because culture doesn't, and it happens not necessarily in the walls of an office, it happens in between the heads of people that are working for the company. And how this works, the social glue, is really, I skipped that one, is really by achieving people's emotional involvement. This is what culture does. This is the primary, perhaps, benefit of having a good culture, is that you've achieved an emotional investment on behalf of your team. And, you cannot think of better colleagues or employees than the people who are emotionally invested. If you lead teams, I'm sure you will agree with me that it's really easy to be the leader, the manager of a team of emotionally invested people. These people, they are simply intrinsically driven to do the right thing. They don't need you to control them, to set KPIs, to coordinate, to delegate, to manage them. They will be intrinsically driven to do the right thing. And this level of emotional investment is what is leading to higher organizational solidarity. And this is what helps companies overcome crisis together. Because you see, organizational solidarity comes with a bunch of benefits. When people feel one with the team and with the company, there will be a high degree of strategic focus. It makes the company more agile in responding to competitive threats. It's leading to everybody's intolerance to poor performance. And so it brings along a bunch of benefits that are outcome related, not only culture and team related. And in the last part, I wanted to leave you with some practical, because this is all perhaps abstract and difficult to bring it home to how could you apply this information. So I wanted to leave you with some actionable steps of what you could be doing to increase the solidarity within your companies and this way make your company more prepared to withstand a crisis. And the first one is actually about practicing self-disclosure. Building solidarity always starts with self-disclosure, because we have fairly dependable scientific data saying that when self-disclosure is high, there is an increase in an interpersonal solidarity. Self-disclosure is this act of communicating or revealing information about yourself to another person that they have no other way of finding out. This is not something they can Google. So you self-disclose when you intentionally give another person information about yourself that the other person is not likely to get on his, on her, or her own, and that is going to significantly and positively impact your relationship with this person. So in simple words, it really means showing your human side much more at work, to talk much more about what matters to you personally, what books impressed you, what movies you watched and you liked, and perhaps it generated some insights. Talk much more about your dreams, your values, and the bigger purpose that drives you personally. And then the second step that you could take is to cultivate we-ness. Because you see, at heart, humans, we are just tribal creatures. We long to belong. We need to feel connected to a community. And for many of us, work community, it offers this huge source of fulfillment, because we don't just work together. We don't just execute tasks. We celebrate each other's achievements and successes. And we also support each other when we are going through losses or failures, personal and professional, because we need that. It makes us much happier to feel connected to something bigger than ourselves. So belonging not only enriches us personally, but it also helps us perform better, which is important for the company. So I would advise to start creating we-ness, and to do that, we need to build great relationships at work, personal relationships. Relationships that go beyond those transactional or strictly business discussions, this superficial chit-chat at the coffee machine. So it's about engaging in meaningful discussions and sharing, asking. So not only, as in the first step, I said, practice self-disclosure is offering information about yourself, but also inviting back information from others. So engaging in meaningful discussions about their values and purpose and what drives them personally. And this will help people on the team to simply stick with the team, even when times are tough. So to stay loyal through difficult times rather than just jump the boat, because they will be there for each other, not even for the leader or for the organization. The third one is to stimulate the will to win. Because you see, when there is an outside threat, it has the capacity of increasing intergroup cooperation. We see that the individuals who perceive the group to be under threat, they will tend to protect the group. And if they perceive themselves personally to be under threat, they will protect themselves. So seeing the threat as a common issue and having this strong desire to win, these two are a great combination to make the company strong in the face of crisis. Because if this desire to win is understood by everyone and it's shared by everyone widely, this is a very strong indicator of having a great culture. And I really like to use here this quote from Marcus Aurelius, who was a Stoic philosopher. And he says that the impediment to action advances action, and what stands in the way becomes the way. And I often advise to use this Stoic wisdom, to communicate it to the team, to tell them that the obstacles in the path, they are normal, they are the path, and challenges are opportunities. So in other words, you as a team, you can turn adversity into opportunity to become better, because that's what great companies do. They are not damaged, but they are improved by crisis, just like people. we see that highly functional individuals, they use crisis as a stepping stone to learn something, to become more flexible, more adaptable, and eventually better and happier. The next one is about clarifying values. I think you know that values are a crucial, really central component of organizational culture. And it's values that determine the ability of a team to execute well on the strategy. So for a team, when they have shared values, it's like a moral compass to them that is indicating how they are expected to behave. So good values are not just listed on the website, but they are actually guiding the behavior of the group. And this is what needs to be achieved. That's why values to be shared, they need to be clear. And then they become actively used to make decisions, to make even the toughest decisions, because in a crisis, sometimes some trade-offs are required, some trade-offs are involved. So you need to clarify that something that you as a company stand for is much more important than the personal gain and the personal benefit. And having shared values means that the team understands that the right action is not always the action that most benefits somebody personally. Doing the right thing sometimes requires sacrifice, and it's sometimes based on conflicting interests, and hence it requires strong morality. And when we act with strong moral judgment and we are transcending one's interest, this is when we are inspired by organizational purpose, and it makes our culture stronger and more inspiring. The fifth one is about finding a noble cause, or as I referred just a couple of seconds ago to it as, we could call it purpose, simply inspiring purpose or organizational purpose. And this is really the direction where the company is headed. You probably know that having an inspiring purpose, it's a super important contributor to employee experience. And when the employee experience is great, this is linked to higher levels of employee engagement, to stronger organizational commitment, to higher loyalty, and an increased level of well-being among people. So we see that people who find congruence between their individual purpose, what matters for them personally, and their job, they tend to get more meaning from their roles. And this makes them more productive and more likely to even outperform their peers. I don't know if I should even mention it, but purpose should, of course, be much more than making money, because making money is only inspiring for the shareholders of the company and nobody else. And saying that financials are the only goal of the business, this is really 1970s, it's really old school, and it's not what the younger generations of candidates or even customers are expecting from companies. Because surviving is not a very inspiring goal for anyone, and a company needs to make money to survive. So purpose should go beyond shareholder value and be inspiring. And then the last one, very important, is not just have an inspiring purpose, but also connect it to people, or connect people to the purpose. Because it's naive to hope that once you announce that's the purpose that we came up with, and that these are the values that we came up with, it's naive to expect that people will automatically feel inspired and they will align, because purpose becomes reality for people even if they understand what it means for them personally and for their work specifically. So only then they will get excited about it. This doesn't mean that you need to rush and communicate this is how our purpose connects to your job description, because we see that in this case top-down communication does not bring desired results, and on the contrary, we see that it's best if the process starts bottom up. So you need to encourage employees to think about what makes work meaningful to them, and how they connect the company purpose to their daily tasks and what they do on a daily basis, how they think they make a positive difference through their actions. So then this purpose is more likely to reinforce their commitment, their engagement, and serve as an inspiration. And as a closing word, I really like showing this quote from John Kennedy, and that says that the Chinese use two brushstrokes to write the word crisis. One stands for danger and the other for opportunity. In a crisis, be aware of the danger, but recognize the opportunity. And we all see the danger, we all see the uncertainty that makes us feel very insecure currently in the world, both as people and as companies. But I propose that we can also use this crisis as an opportunity to make our companies better, stronger, healthier, by focusing on improving culture, not taking any other more common sense, perhaps, business decisions, but really making culture the priority. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Back. Thank you, Tamara, for all these insights and a very practical approach on actually how to increase. Do you hear me? Or
Yes.
Yes. Yes. So the very practical approach, how to increase the impact of the culture on the strategy and business growth. And I have a few questions that showed up in the chat. The first question is, from your experience, what are the biggest mistakes that companies are making when trying to improve the culture in the company?
Biggest mistakes. It's difficult to make a prioritization what are the biggest, but I would name a couple of more straightforward ones. I think that one mistake is assuming that culture is what is only visible and on the surface, and not understanding that if companies want to improve a culture, they really need to understand that if culture is about behaviors of employees, what creates that behavior? And then we have to go into the invisible, unconscious elements of culture, into the beliefs, assumptions, those underlying assumptions about culture. They drive behavior. So when trying to improve a company, it's not enough even to work just with values, because it's really, there needs to be really a deep analysis into what influences the behavior of our team, why our team behaves as they do, and how can we change behavior to help them execute on the strategy better. And another straightforward one that I see in practice as an advisor is that there is usually not enough genuine support on the behalf of top management. There is formal support, there is perhaps financial support or in terms of resources, but there is no deep commitment to make the change. And I think I understand where this is coming from, because culture is always the reflection of the leader. And if the leader doesn't like the culture in his or her team, well, in a way, too bad, because they have created it. It's a mirror. It's always a mirror. So to be a leader that genuinely supports culture improvement and change, you also need to have a high degree of self-reflection and high readiness to change personally as well.
Yeah, I think it's all about walking the talk. I mean, if they don't walk the talk, obviously the people won't be inspired to follow. But I also do recognize a lot what you said in the first point, that it's about trying to understand, dig a bit deeper. And what at Culture Code, we also analyze the behaviors, but also the stories, so the narratives that the employees are currently saying or currently believing it, and identify those that are not really supporting them, but also the company, and trying to move it to the narratives that they will. So yeah, completely agree here. Thank you. And there's one more question. So you mentioned finding a noble cause as one of the strategies to unite people. But what if the company is not genuinely connected to a noble cause? And could you speak about the dark side of building a cause just for a talent attraction or effectiveness purposes? Is that not genuinely the genuine, yeah.
Unfortunately, this is something I see very, very often, because by now this purpose, organizational purpose, became such a fancy, fashionable word that every company claims that they have it. but it doesn't mean that they truly have it. Again, they don't walk the talk. Very often I see that purpose is an isolated phenomenon. It exists on the website, in the marketing promotional materials, in job description or vacancy descriptions, but there is no bridge to how does it influence how we make decisions? Does it influence how we set priorities? Usually it doesn't translate there as well. So this indeed is such a widely spread problem. And it's really, of course, candidates and employees, they see through that. You can play this in the beginning, but then what it brings is just opposite results. People become very cynical about anything the company says. There is a low trust in anything the company claims. And this cynicism, of course, it's not contributing to their motivation, engagement, loyalty. It's really, and it's such a waste of a great opportunity to make your company stand out, to attract talent or to stand out from the competition. Because purpose, I think, is so important. Sometimes I tell companies that if you don't have time to work on culture, like a wide project, and reason you could do just one thing, then just work on the purpose. Make sure that you define an inspiring purpose and you connect people to it, what I said in my talk. Yeah. This could be, even if you do just that, it would already be an improvement for the culture.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And I'm getting some signs that we are a little bit running out of time, and there will be probably I have at least 2 more questions here, but we will maybe take it offline. So thank you again for sharing your knowledge and experience today with us. And yeah,
thank you.
We'll move to the next part. Yes, so now we will be moving to the next part of our event. So we are going to move to the discussion between Giselle Pfeff, who is the founder of Culture Code, and 3 HR leaders. So I will first call on stage Giselle. Welcome, Giselle.
Hi, Anya. Hi, everybody.
How are you doing?
Great, especially after this great session with Tamara Markova. I could be just here, like listening for 1 more hour or 2, because it's very interesting. Thank you very much, Tamara.
Very inspiring indeed. Then I'm going to call the next speakers and leave you for the discussion.
Yeah. So after this great session, it's time to speak with HR and people leaders that are facing these challenges every day. And as Anya said, we have great panelists for today. So I'm proud to invite, and I see some faces already arriving.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
So we have here today, Annelien, Saskia, and Lynn. So Saskia is a head of talent at We Grow International, a consultancy company in the field of international expansion. We Grow supports startups and scale-ups for the pre-seed until late Series A with HR and recruitment service. Thanks for being here, Saskia.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome. Lynn Schaffer is the head of people and culture at Homey and Stromy, a Berlin-based smart home and renewable energy startup. She has more than 20 years of experience in HR, recruiting, and talent management at McKinsey & Company and Bertelsmann. Welcome, Lynn. Very good to have you here.
Thanks, Giselle.
And Annelien de Castecker, passionate about people, as probably all of us, behavior and business, and working today as a head of people for Sunday, a sustainable company fashion that creates ambassadors and is the first one reference in Europe for premium sustainable company fashion. Welcome, Annelien.
Hello, thank you.
Very good to have you. So we all complete now to start this discussion. And I will ask you, like three of you, to maybe keep your mic off during the session. And yeah, just to avoid extra noises. Thank you very much. So let's start with a question for Lynn. That, yeah, we know, Lynn, that you had this experience of working for a big consultancy as a senior recruiter. Yeah, probably you had a very abundant number of talents wanting to join the company. And now you are in this current experience working for a tech company, right?
Yeah.
So I want to ask you, what are the crucial differences in your current strategy to attract new talents? How do you face that differences?
Yeah, sure. Happy to share some of my lessons learned. Giselle, so when I started at McKinsey, I was a senior recruiter there. McKinsey is a big strategic management consultancy with focus on human resources only. So no production facilities or other things, just human resources, the consultants. And back in the 2000s, McKinsey did not experience a war for talent. So they had a target of 250 to 300 hires per year. They had a huge team of 25 plus recruiters and assistants who took care of these several thousands of applications. And I remember that just for a top event, which means going to a nice location in Austria with 30 or 40 students, we had more like several hundreds of applications for that. So no war for talent. The three main sources for attracting talent was university marketing, which means focusing on top-tier universities in Germany. The second one was candidate relationship management or talent relationship management, meaning setting up pools like gold, silver, bronze for instance, former interns who performed very good and they had an offer to directly start with the company. And the last one was very classic employer branding and advertisements. And I can just recall or remember one sentence: do you want your dad to become proud of you? And that worked in these or those times. Times have definitely changed. Contexts have changed. Now in a startup, no one knows us. We're a homey, stromy, 40 people, Berlin-based startup, but we don't have really a brand. And I don't have a budget. I remember for one of the talent pools I took care of, I think I had 250,000 euros a year just to do parties with students. So yeah, times changed. Nowadays, I have no budget. It's me, myself, and I taking care of these recruiting activities. And the biggest sources for recruiting or attracting talents in our case are, first of all, a referral program. So out of these 28 new colleagues we hired back in 2022 or last year, 14 people came via referrals. So we have a referral program where we actively also incentivize with money. And just as a reference, at McKinsey, they didn't have a referral program. So they didn't pay any money. It was just a letter one person got from the managing director from Germany, but no money. They deliberately said, no, we are not incentivizing this. And we in our startup, we say, of course, otherwise we have to pay headhunters. So we pay for that, and 14 people came via that source. The second biggest source was people who were formerly laid off. It might sound a bit strange, but in Germany, there was an energy crisis. So there were lots of people coming or very top performer, and we hired them from other energy companies. Maybe some of you also know this website called layoff.fyi. So I'm also on a constant basis checking out tech talent there. So these are the biggest sources, I would say. And in terms of, I think, in terms of talent pools or talent target groups, recession, yes, crisis, yes, but probably most of the HR people in this call will still experience the war for talent when it comes to tech talent. So one really has to be innovative or inventive to look for these people. Yeah.
Thanks, Lynn. Thanks for your perspective. And to add a bit of pepper, because Saskia, you are working in the field of international expansion, recruiting for scale-ups, right? And do you agree with Lynn? Or do you see that those layoffs and crises are making your life as a recruiter easier? Or it's culture, it's too crucial, or is it easier to hire, to find great talents right now because of that scenario?
Well, it's a bit of a two-way street. First of all, compliments to Lynn. Hiring 28 people in 2022 must have been, with such less resources, very challenging, because we get a lot of requests, maybe different last year than now. Last year was a lot of high volume requests, like, okay, I need an entire sales team, I need an entire country team, for example. Now it's just a head of sales or a country manager. So maybe the volume has changed, but I think the war on talent is definitely still there. Where last year it would take me maybe for a head of sales or a head of tech, it took me 6 months to fill it because people were just not moving. Everybody had a job. It was all great. And now you see, okay, maybe the time has gone down. So there is, maybe due to more movement, due to more crises at companies and layoffs, more movement between people. But then on the other way, it also works the other way around. That people say, hey, times are becoming more uncertain. I might actually want to stay where I am because I'm safe. I might like it here, or I might not like it here. But what maybe has changed, where maybe people would have changed for a bigger ticket or a bigger salary earlier on. Now you see that even though it's challenging and uncertain times, people say, no, I am looking for a purpose. What Tamara said as well, I'm looking for a certain culture that I want to belong in. And I find this really, really important. I think this also had to do with COVID and changing times, but that became more and more important. So now when we advise companies to hire people, and we sometimes set up strategies and so on, it's really like, okay, what is your culture? What is your purpose? And how can you translate this into your employer branding? How can you not just make it a marketing thing, like Tamara said, but really, how can you show the people? People want to know who they're going to work with. People want to know how they are going to develop. So even in screening calls, the first calls, we get a question, okay, what's the culture? What's the purpose of the company? What are they actually doing? Am I interested? Yes or no? Where otherwise it might have been, okay, what's the salary? We still get that question sometimes, but the culture is more and more important, definitely still.
Well, yeah, as we from Culture Code we expected, but it's very interesting to hear also from your side this perspective. And but how to keep this team morale? Like we are like basically having challenging times. Sometimes it's about layoff, or even companies that are not like facing layoffs right now, they have hiring freezing. And then like there's less opportunity to grow compared with what we had 3 years ago, where like was very easy to get promoted or to build a team inside, especially tech companies, inside those organizations. And how do you keep, in your perspective, the team morale high during these challenging times? Maybe Annelien can take this.
Yes, thank you. Well, I have to admit that I don't have experience in encountering large-scale layoffs. But what I do know is that I heard from people in my network who unfortunately experienced already such stressing times, is that communication is a very important factor in this. During such difficult moments, it's very important to keep your communication from top down, but also from bottom up, of course. But keep hearing the voice of the leaders, the management, and one of these times is the most important step during this process, or the most important thing during this process. It's about creating trust in those who are staying or who could stay, and let them share their experiences and especially their emotions in a confidential environment. So every employee wants to know where he is at that moment when their colleagues are getting laid off or whatever. And they want to know especially why certain choices have been made by management. So I know Tamara already said about the why, but the why is very important in this also times. So yeah, that's my opinion on that.
Thank you, Annelien. Saskia, maybe you want to add something?
Yeah, maybe I can add something here because I've recently gone through a period where I had to let go of staff, unfortunately, also due to the current market situations, and also experienced it in some of the scale-ups that we were advising or I've worked with in the past. Because if you know hyper growth, unfortunately, one of the downsides is always that also people need to be let go. And one of the things that I recently really experienced is that asking people this, sure, it's the tone at the top. So also be a good example in sharing, like, okay, what does this do to me? What kind of feelings? There is feeling of uncertainty. You're going through anger. You're going to defensiveness before you get into acceptance. But work is such an important part for people. It's where they build their whole lives with. So not knowing is a very dangerous thing. And I think what we did is as well ask people in weekly meetings, like, hey, how do you feel? What do you do? And obviously we didn't have that big of a team. So, but people got the option to express after also the leader saying, okay, this is what it does to me. I also sometimes have times where I have a hard time to focus because it's uncertain and I'm going through joy, I'm going through grief, I'm going through all these stages, and invite people to share that because they feel more safe if they can talk about it, like Annelien said.
Yeah, it sounds so basic when we think like that, right? And why do you think that leaders are still forgetting about this as a basis, like to build psychological safety, and how, and about the importance of building psychological safety?
Well, it is also something that it's difficult, so especially with leaders when going through a crisis. It's very short term. They're putting down fires. They have a very clear focus on doing this. So sometimes it's the thing they just forget along the way. Like, okay, I'm putting this, I'm having these talks, I'm doing everything I can to save the company. And all the things the employees see is that they hear radio silence. They have no clue that you're so busy with doing all that. And obviously, I've talked to leaders as well close by that said, yeah, and then what? I'm going to stand there on the stage and I get a question like, can you pay my this month's salary? Yes, this month's salary I can pay. But what if they ask me, can I pay next month's salary? And then you don't know, as a leader, you don't know the answer. Is that then a good moment to go and stand there and answer this? Sometimes it's really difficult when you have listed companies, stakeholders, confidentiality, NDAs, and so on. Obviously, you're not allowed to say a lot, and there might be people that disagree with me fairly, like, okay, then don't go stand there. I would always say just go stand there, because for people it's really important to see you as a human. And if you don't have the answers, there's always the question that you say, unfortunately, I cannot answer that right now. Would that create more uncertainty? I'm not sure. At least it has the psychological effect, like, okay, it's transparent here. They, as much as they can, they share with me, instead of I have no clue what's happening behind the curtains. And people, the first thing when this situation happens, people start, okay, let me start looking for jobs because I need a plan B, C, and D, because work is important and I need to keep my family safe. And that's maybe something you actually don't want to happen as a leader. So go out there, stand there, be as transparent as possible. And if you don't know, you don't know. Then that's also an answer, but then at least you share it with people.
Yeah. Do you have any addition, Annelien, on this before we move? Okay, then, so Annelien, culture is also very important part of Sunday teams, right? Because basically it's your core.
Yeah, it's all about culture.
Support, building culture ambassadors, right?
Yeah.
So tell us how, the current challenges and the global crises are shaping not just your own offerings, but maybe your company culture.
Yeah, well, first of all, the company culture at Sunday sounds very cheesy that I'm going to say that, but it was also one of my main reasons to get part of this team last year. How do we embrace that culture at Sunday? Maybe I will begin with that. So every day we keep on enforcing this culture by reflecting to everybody on our company values. We have 5 values named growth, holistic, ownership, value-driven, and worldly. And we use them at every process, for example, in our employee life cycle, for example, in sourcing, in recruitment, during our onboarding program. We have a very defined onboarding program of 3 months. After onboarding, we have role cards where we define the competences and the key responsibilities that somebody should have, or where we want to develop somebody into. And it's always aligned with our values. What do I mean about that? For example, for us, performance is one of our key indicators to see if somebody is, growing at Sunday, or is the individual that we want to keep in our organization. But also the behavior side is for us even important, and we link always the values with our behavior. What do we do next is that our values sometimes is something that is very theoretical. So I think the most difficult things is to make those values into a practical thing that everybody knows why we choosing for these values and what they mean, or what the understanding is of it. So, for example, what do we do to be very concrete? Every Monday morning, we do a stand-up with the Belgium team. It's 30 people over there. And it's like 10 minutes where we pick out the things that are scheduled in that meeting, but we always pick also out one value that we want to discuss. And we ask then to one of our employees, okay, give an example what you have done last week that is related with that value. They could say, for example, I've taken some ownership because I've done these or these actions, and reflected in those solutions, for example. Yeah. So that's one of the important things, and those values and the values. But next to that is, of course, our core business. So company clothing is one of the main assets in enforcing a team sense and culture. Because to make the team spirit and company feeling even more interested, we invest also in Sunday in our own Sunday swag. As you can see, I'm wearing one at this moment. It's not because I'm at this webinar. I wear every day another another sweater or beanie from Sunday. But you feel that it's like a sweater, and you sit next to a colleague and who is also wearing the same sweater or another sweater, but with the logo on it and with like the text on it of your own company where you work for. It's just like such an energy, and you feel it when you look at that colleague because you're wearing the same clothes.
Yeah, basically you try it's interesting. You try to you translate the company values into behaviors, like into tactical actions, and you try to embed these in the company's rituals.
Embed these in the companies,
fantastic,
yes.
Fantastic. And Lynn, how is this at homing? So maybe Lynn had a connection problem.
Maybe there's a technical issue. Maybe I can add a little bit to how it's at We Grow. Saskia. We unfortunately don't have really cool swag. Lynn is back, but I'll quickly answer this one. Real swag, but we, for example, have also in our weekly meetings that we ask people to, it's rotating. So from intern to leader, it doesn't matter. Each week, a new person has to start an icebreaker in light of our values. So that's when we try to make it alive instead of having it on our swag. But that's something we try to do to actually make it back and rotate it, let people own it instead of something top down.
Okay, thanks Saskia. And so to finish this fantastic session, because we are also running out of time, do you have any other tangible examples of like what your company is doing in times of crisis, to keep employees engaged, to keep the culture alive? Do you have any other examples?
So what we do is always try to measure it. One thing is that you think it's all right, but the expectations of the employees can be totally different. So for example, we do employee well-being surveys or an employee NPS. I think, Lynn, you do a lot more, right? At HOMI.
No, we also, as you just mentioned, of course, we do on a monthly basis, we do pulse surveys to check on engagement, on satisfaction, employee net promoter score. We also regularly monitor our employer ratings on Kununu, for instance, which is the German version of Glassdoor. Yeah, things like this we do to exactly to track our engagement. Yeah, if the people are still happy. One-on-ones we also do. Yeah.
Okay. So thank you very much, Lynn, Saskia, and Eileen, and thank you all for your time and your presence in this session. I want also to thank you very much, Anya, and the Culture Code team that did a great job organizing this webinar. It was very inspiring for me. I hope it was inspiring for all of you. I enjoyed a lot, and we'll be sharing this content soon after we finish this. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye,
Bye.
everybody.
Thank you. Bye.